Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We're going to be talking about to me, it's one of my favorite topics for Guyana, which is landing a big one. So it's all about sport fishing in Guyana. Nicola has a great presentation for you. She's going to lead us through a few different updates on what's currently going on in country right now. And then we actually have a special guest joining us, Navin from Adventure Guyanas, and he's going to walk us through a sample itinerary of what a fishing trip to Guyana would look like. So before I hand things over to them, I do want to just take a quick minute to introduce our portfolio to you. Since we're talking about Guyana today, I'm only going to introduce our South American portfolio. So we have Terra Nova, who does Costa Rica travel design. We have Las Torres, Patagonia, and Fantástico Sur, who operate in Chile, in Patagonia, in the Cerro del Paine National Park, National Reserve. We have Cruz Andina, who does a famous lake crossing between Chile and Argentina. Jungle Experiences, doing the Amazon River cruising in Peru. And of course, Grand Hotels Lux, who have properties in both Uruguay and Argentina. So if you do have any questions about any of the clients that you see up on your screen right now, please feel free to email me. My email address is at the bottom there. I'd be more than happy to help you out with any information that you might need. We have some great digital brochures. If you want to schedule a private training for you and your team, you can contact me about any of those things. So please feel free to reach out. A couple housekeeping items to go over first. This webinar will be recorded. So if you do need to answer a call, if you need to step away, etc., don't worry, I'll be sending out the recording to everyone next week. So you can expect that from me in the follow-up. And then lastly, we'd love for you to participate. So once the presentation's done, we will do a quick Q&A with Nicola. Time depending, of course, we'll try to answer as many of the questions as you have. But again, if there are any questions that don't get answered during the session, we will make sure to send those answers out to you in the webinar follow-up next week as well. So I think that's all from me. I'm going to hand things over to Nicola and Navin.
Thanks, Jenna, and welcome everyone to the webinar. Today we will actually be talking about sport fishing experiences in Guyana, and we actually have a guest host today. So I'm happy to introduce Navin Rupnarayan from Adventure Guyanas. This is a local tour company here in Guyana with a very special interest in sport fishing. As many of you know, my name is Nicola Balaram from the Guyana Tourism Authority, and I work in our destination marketing division. Navin, do you want to say hello?
Yes, good afternoon or good day wherever you are. Like Nicola says, my name is Navin Rupnarayan, and I own and operate Adventure Guyanas, a registered tour company operating since 2008. And I also own and operate Piraiba Lodge, located on the upper Essequibo River, some 32 kilometers upriver from the Arapaima River Lodge. And then we just specialize in sports fishing.
That's why he was able to catch the bigger fish in this introduction photo than I was. But Navin is going to carry you through one of his typical itineraries a bit later on. I'm going to now introduce you to just some of the basic facts about Guyana if you haven't heard of us before or just need a quick refresher. So Guyana is a rare kind of place, one that you can really feel nature's beating heart. And in this photo here, I am actually close to the Kaieteur Falls in the Kaieteur National Park. This is about 4 to 5 times taller than Niagara Falls, which sits in Canada. Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America, and it's just about the size of Idaho, which is located just below the Caribbean Sea and sandwiched between Venezuela, Suriname, and Brazil. Now, how to get to Guyana? From our North American markets, we do have some direct connections from Miami, New York, and Toronto. Now, these are all a bit post-COVID, but I'll get in a bit later to some of the air routes that have opened up since our airports are open. And from the North American destinations, it's usually between 5 to 8 hours of travel. We do have airlines such as Eastern Airlines, American Airlines, Hope Airlines, and Caribbean Airlines that serve from our North American markets. JetBlue will actually be starting in December of this year. And we also have Suriname Airways, Virgin Atlantic, British Airways that have direct connections to Guyana and connections through some of our other supporting Caribbean countries around the area. Now, I know COVID is still a big concern for a lot of us here, so just a quick update on what is happening in our country right now. We do have a curfew that is between 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Essential businesses are allowed to be open from 6 a.m. to 9:30. Hotels and lodges hotels are able to be open for 24 hours, but there are restrictions on some services. Social distancing and wearing masks in public is observed. And we do have some new guidelines in terms of traveling to Guyana. The general points are that you do have to take a PCR test at least 7 days before traveling to Guyana. If your PCR test is done within 1 to 3 days, you don't have to get a second test when online on the ground. However, if you are here between 4 to 7 days of that test being taken, you do have to get a second test. More information can be found on www.guyanatravel.gy. Now, some of the airlines that have officially confirmed dates to start flying back to Guyana are Caribbean Airlines, which started in November 4th from Miami. American Airlines, sorry. Caribbean Airlines, which will be starting later in November. Copa Airlines, which started from October 26th. Eastern Airlines, which started from October 12th. JetBlue, which is was scheduled from April, but they actually just gave an update that they will now be flying from December 11th. Suriname Airways is scheduled for November, and Trans-Guyana Airways from Barbados is scheduled for October. Now, before we get a bit more in depth with sport fishing, what is the Guyana tourism product really about? There's so many experiences here in Guyana that you can have and so many areas that they touch on, but some of the best ways to describe our product is that we are a nature and wildlife destination. We have active and exploration experiences. We're filled with culture and heritage. We're known for our birding and also about our conservation and safe travel experiences. Now, the most important thing to note is that while we do have these main 5 pillars of what a tourism product is, any one adventure you have here in Guyana can touch on all of these experiences or even 2 to 3 of them at one time. Guyana is known as the land of 6 ethnic groups, but some of the most common faces you'll see on your travels are those of African descent, East Indian, and our indigenous peoples. Now it's time to go fishing. So there are 2 main ways that you do fishing here in Guyana for a tourism experience. There's the indigenous way, and then there's the sport fishing way. So I know Navin is a bit more of an expert in this field than I am. So he's going to carry you through these 2 areas and what a typical itinerary looks like for him in his sport fishing business. Navin, over to you.
Thank you, Nicola. Okay, the indigenous sport fishing methods most fundamentally would be the bow and arrow, fishing with the bow and arrow. And then these are done by the indigenous communities, mostly along the riverine areas. And if you were to read a bit about the 9 different tribes of Guyana, you would come across the Waraos. They're probably the most efficient in the use of the bow and arrow. The indigenous way of fishing primarily is for self-sustenance of the indigenous people. So basically what they do is fish using these methods for food. On the other hand, we promote sport fishing, which is actually 100% catch and release. And you may wonder how this contradicts the Amerindian indigenous way of fishing, but actually we want to rather look at it as that it complements the indigenous community in that it promotes, it provides employment, alternative employment. So in cases where these communities are heavily dependent on fishing for their livelihoods, we encourage people to, or rather we would like to see Guyana become a premier sport fishing destination. So these communities can have alternative income, and thereby the river or water system can actually be more productive and be more sport fishing, to encourage sport fishing, that is. So I'll go into the typical itinerary that we would do. Basically, this is offered by Adventure Guyanas, and it's on our website, World Wide Web at adventureguyanas.com. And we refer to this particular tour package as Freshwater Monster, because basically that is what we're chasing, monsters of the Essequibo. So our standard fishing package consists of 10 days and inclusive of your arrival and departure dates. So you arrive from your host country, and we spend the first night in Georgetown. Depending on your time of arrival in Georgetown, we would normally do a little introduction to historic Georgetown, basically taking you on a short tour of Georgetown and the historic sites that we have in Georgetown. Day two, basically, of course, you overnight at one of our hotels in Georgetown. Day two, it's a 1-hour flight from the Eugene F. Corai International Airport, located at Ogle, just about 10 to 15 minutes away from the city of Georgetown. And those flights are usually early in the morning, or between 8 and 9 a.m. It takes you to the Arapaima airstrip, which is located at the Amerindian village of Fairview. Now, the Arapaima, of course, is well known. It's one of our, it's called the Green Heart of Guyana, and it's 1 million acres or 371,000 hectares of our rainforest that we would have pledged to the world in 1989, which later became a protected area in 1993. So there's essentially a village that is found within that reserve, and it's called Fairview, and the airstrip incidentally is located there. So you arrive at Fairview village, a village predominantly inhabited by the Makushi tribe, which is one of our 9 indigenous tribes found in Guyana. And from there, we introduce you to the mighty Essequibo, which is our largest river in Guyana and one of the largest in South America. And most notably, it's actually one of the least frequented rivers in the world. And that is why it still remains one of the best river to sport fish. From Fairview, it's about an hour or hour and a half, depending on the water levels and the capacity of the boats and its engine and so forth. And it takes you to Piriba Lodge. Now, Piriba Lodge came into being in 2016, and we have 6 twin rooms that can easily occupy 12 anglers at any given time. So we're mindful, of course, that at any given time, we would not want to see more than 12 persons on the river fishing. I think more often than not, we have groups between 8 and 10 using 5 boats, 2 persons to a boat. So your second night basically is more or less an orientation and acclimatization to the jungles of Guyana, and we actually prep you up for the following 6 full days of fishing. So day three, whilst the Essequibo River system, which is of course part of the Amazon River system, there are multiple species similar to that what is found in the Amazon. Of course, there are some species that are found in the Amazon and south of South America that we don't have. But when you think of South America and you think of the Amazon, basically most of the species are found in the Essequibo. So on day 3, we take you out lure fishing, more or less, so you can get climatized and accustomed to the weather conditions. Sometimes it can be very harsh. The sun can be very harsh. And the target species, primarily on day 3, which is your first official fishing day, would be peacock bass and arrowana. Now, whilst the river system has multiple species, of course, different species inhabit different areas. There's some species, for example, like the payara and so on, they require a higher oxygen intake, and you'll find them more in the rapids and so on. So day 3, peacock bass, arrowana, they're more or less found in similar places. And what a fun day. And of course, every single day gives you an opportunity. If you're an average, you're a professional photographer, or you're just like taking out photograph. The river system is so beautiful. The area is very pristine. Lots of wildlife, lots of birds. So this is also an attraction by itself. Day 4, again, we take you out to different places. Today we target one of the species that a lot of our anglers come to catch, and it's called the payara, or the vampire fish. And the payara is very unique, as you can see from the picture here. It has 2 large fangs on the lower jaw that actually protrudes the upper jaw. And what is very unique about this particular fish is that it has 2 grown fangs that lies in the lower jaw, a spear. And should there be damage or a broken tooth, you would find that it's immediately replaced. And this is very unique to the payara. The payara, they are found in fast flowing rapids because they require a high oxygen intake. And it's a fish that one should be very careful with in terms of taking it out of the water for prolonged periods because of its high oxygen intake. So you should be very quick in terms of taking your pictures and so on, and release back into the water. So on our third day of fishing, which officially is day 6 in the total itinerary, we start to target the larger or the bigger boys. And one of the species that is very common in the Amazon River system would be the red-tailed catfish, sometimes referred to as the express red-tail. And this is one of the species that can grow over 100 pounds. And it's actually one of the target species for a lot of the anglers that are into catfish fishing. And like the other catfish, they're all found in deep pools beneath the river system on the riverbeds. And the method that you actually use is quite different, of course. We use either live baits, small piranhas, or cut bait, that is a slice of fish on a size of hook that is recommended for these kind of species. And it's placed with a sink, or basically a lead sink. And of course, these are all very common with the average or professional anglers. So it goes down to the bottom of the riverbed, and that's where the catfish are found. And you know, more often than not, you land a very good red tail. So we're on day 7, and this is actually bringing the curtains down actually on your normal standard 6-day fishing. And one of the most one of the highlights basically of any Amazon fishing trip would be the Goliath catfish, commonly called the lau lau, or in Brazil, they're called a piranha. And our lodge is named after this particular species because the habitat is just in front of our lodge. So in cases where your time is running out, a lot of the anglers want to fish into the night. So they just set up camp on the riverbanks, and in front of the lodge is a very good spot for the piranha or low. Last but not least, I think a lot of people, when you think of the Amazon, you think of the Arapaima. Now, whilst Arapaima is considered a protected species, Guyana boasts a very healthy population due primarily to a lot of work by the indigenous community to protect this species and its habitat. So Guyana is one of the few places that you can come and catch an arapaima in the wild. We have varying methods that are used, and these are still gray areas that we are working on. However, it's the care that goes into and the method that goes into catching the arapaima remains very, very particular. And like in all cases, photographing of the arapaima and all the other species, you take as least time as possible to get your photos without actually removing the fish completely from the water. So the arapaima actually is the highlight, more or less, of the fishing package. And as you would agree that most of the anglers, this is a dream species to catch and to have the experience of. So the penultimate day is actually when you leave the lodge. However, in between of all of these fishing, there's so many other species that that are targeted in between, and of course it depends also on the kind of fish that that you actually are targeting, because a lot of people, when they come to countries like Guyana, they would have already visited Brazil and maybe some other South American countries, and they would have catch, let's say, a payaro. They would have catch bigger peacock bass, and the target might be the haimara, as it is called, but actually the correct name is the trairo. And we have two species, which is the lesser trairo and the larger, which is the haimara or wolffish, as you can see in this photograph here. And that's a very aggressive species, and sometimes many of the anglers actually want to have a go at the wolffish. So these are all species, and in addition, there's also the tiger, tiger shovel nose, which is called in Brazil the surubim. And whilst in Paraguay and more south of the southern rivers in South America, there's a larger species actually, which can grow over 70 pounds. Unfortunately, we don't have that species in Guyana. What we have is the regular tiger shovel nose or surubim. And we have the Kobe, which is not actually a very popular fish amongst anglers. It's more a fish that the natives would actually catch for food. And we have the red pacu, which is actually a nut-eating vegetarian fish that makes it almost impossible to catch with a lure, simply because it doesn't eat other fishes. However, we have developed a method using a spinner, which actually looks like a floating weed or a floating nut of some sort, and it actually takes these spinners, and we've had quite a good success. And I believe, whilst many would argue that the peacock bass, pound for pound, is the hardest fighter, I think if you come across, if you're hooked onto a red pacu, and these pacu inhabits the rapids and the fast flowing areas in Essequibo and the Amazon River system, you would probably have more to say about which species, pound for pound, is the hardest fighter. So here's your picture. It's a female red pacu. Um, the male are actually brighter red than the females. So that brings us to the end of actually the standard 6 full days of fishing. And the morning we head back to the Arapaima airstrip. And there's always an option for extended stay, extended fishing days, and to combine your fishing trip with maybe other areas, other lodges in Guyana. And very close, of course, is the Arapaima River Lodge. So we would also want to encourage you to maybe stay one night at the Arapaima River Lodge before your flight back to Georgetown. And here, Georgetown, if you didn't get a chance to actually, because of your arrival time on the first day, it gives you a second chance to explore our beautiful capital city of Georgetown and its historic sites, the local cuisine, the nightlife, and all that comes, with it. So here we are actually saying goodbye the night before, and on the 10th day is your international flight or your onward travel.
Thanks, Navin. We like to say Guyana is a place where social distancing is kind of built into the landscape, and conservation is a part of our tourism product. And I know Navin did touch a little bit, actually a lot, on how sustainability is a big part of his business practices and what he does. And I know right now with COVID as well, do you want to just share some of the things that you are working on with your business to make it safe for travelers to come back?
Yeah, well, we're following all the COVID guidelines that are constantly being upgraded and developed by our local tourism authority here in Guyana. And of course, one of the fundamental aspects is social distancing, to have regular sanitization of your hands, to have all the facilities, all the wash basins and equipment placed at the right spot. And we are mindful of COVID. I think COVID is here, would be with us for some time, and it's something that we'll have to learn to live with. And gradually, I think we are beginning to accept that fact and adhering to all the regulations to make Destination Guyana a safe place.
Do you have a favorite experience if you had to choose one type of fish or one type of place to go fishing that you would definitely recommend?
Well, it is, there's so many species and they all give you an excitement. And what is one of the very important aspect about fishing in the Essequibo is that when you hook onto a fish, it can be many different species. So whilst you may actually be targeting a particular species, until that fish actually comes into sight, there's always this excitement and this curiosity as to what species it is. But I am actually into the monster fishing. My goal personally is to catch 10 or more freshwater species over 100 pounds. And in the Amazon River system, we have 4. They are actually the Amazon red tail, which is a catfish. And one of the species I did not actually touch on, it's the Zhao catfish, which is also one of the species that people come to catch here in Guyana. And that is another species that grows over 100 pounds. We have the other catfish, which is the Periba laulau or the Goliath catfish. And that is actually referred to as the freshwater shark and can grow over 300 pounds. I believe the world record is 320 pounds. And of course, we have the Arapaima. So those are the 4 species in the Amazon River system that can grow over 100 pounds, that grows over 100 pounds. And fortunately for me, fishing all these years, I have caught all of the 4 species, and I've actually ventured out of Guyana a few times, and I've also caught the the alligator gar in Texas, and the sturgeon, the white sturgeon in Canada. So to answer Nicola, my favorite species to catch in the Amazon River system would be the largest of the monsters, which is actually the piranha or lau.
You just have 4 more to meet your overall goal then.
Yes, and then of course, if anything comes after, it would be a plus.
Definitely. For more information, you can find more information about Guyana on www.guyanatourism.com and more information about Navin, Adventure Guyanas, and how you can get in contact with him at www.adventureguyanas.com. You can also visit the website of our private sector sister agency to the GTA, the Tourism and the Hospitality Association of Guyana. This is a membership-based organization for a lot of our tourism businesses. For statistics and investment opportunities, please check out statisticsguyana.gov.jy or goinvest.gov.gy. And for more information on our main international airport that serves the US, you can check out cgairport.gy.com. And if you need more information about travel in Guyana, especially in relation to the current COVID-19 guidelines, please check out guyanatravel.gy. This is our team here at the Guyana Tourism Authority. For new operators that would like to start serving Guyana, we provide just key information. A lot has been also featured in this webinar, assisted with coordinating travel-related events and interviews, joint advertising, support on fam trips, help to negotiate hotel rates, and help build your relationship with Guyana's private sector here, including other members like Navin as well. But I know he's very responsive in emails and he's always happy to chat with you. So just look him up to learn more about fishing opportunities here in Guyana. Before we break for any questions, we do have a general video about adventure travel in Guyana. It doesn't go too much detail into sport fishing, but it does capture just basically why Guyana is a great place to have some of these adventurous experiences. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jenna, so if she can play that video.
I mean, the world changing, right? The world getting packed. It's something that needs balance. And Guyana is full of quite nice habitat. It's got a lot of rivers, it's got a lot of open spaces, a lot of jungle, not too much traffic. I think that's an important one. It's kind of therapeutic in a way too, you know? To be going in the jungle, or in savannas, going in remote areas. If it's wild and adventurous, canoeing, hiking, horse riding, biking, just getting away from the internet, the phones, the job, all the daily, you know, the slog that you go through in life. And you meet other people from a different culture. You get to bond differently. I mean, after a week, 2 weeks on a river, you learn things about yourself, you know, that you don't believe. You have to deal with your fears, some of your prejudices. That's a lovely place to come to, you know, lovely and wild still.
I've been around quite a few places around the world. I've been in most jungles, most rainforests around the world, and certainly from my perspective, Guyana is the best. It's got awesome jungle. Here you still have 9 tribes, over 100 communities, village communities, and people and kids, they're still making bows and arrows from the forest. They're still weaving strings from leaves to go and hunt and to go and fish. there is a move for people to spend their money not on things anymore because they have everything. So people are spending it, getting experiences and getting memories and getting themselves into situations that is also tough, and it's going to give them something rewarding inside them as opposed to just in their back pocket. It's massive, and for everyone it's different. People are trying to spend their money on experience and memories and not just on stuff anymore.
All right, thank you so much for that video, and thanks Navin and Nicola for that great presentation as well. I know that for me, that's one of my dream trips, is to do what Navin just described there. So hopefully one day, well, it's open now. Guyana's open now, however, still waiting on when those experiences will be ready. So Nicola, if you want to hop on, unfortunately Navin could not stay to answer any questions for us. So hopefully, Nicola, you'll be able to speak to these. If not, we can always send out some answers to you in the webinar follow-up. So the first question is, are you able to fish for any species that you can eat? And if so, is it possible to process and ship back to the US?
So the first parts of that question, we are a big destination on sustainable and catch and release fishing. So of the monster fishes, it's not able to fish to keep to eat. Some of the smaller fishes that you will be able to see, such as the piranhas, once you do it with a licensed guide or with a licensed lodge, there are some experiences that you will be able to catch the smaller fish and be able to eat it, and they can show you how they prepare it the indigenous way or on the riverbanks. So that is a part of the experience. But unfortunately for the bigger species, it is catch and release fishing. In terms of traveling back to the US, the fishes from Guyana that you can carry back to the US are usually the ones that are for commercial sale. And those are the ones that there is a special process for it to be packaged to carry back to the US.
All right, thank you for that. We have some comments about how great that video is. Is it currently on your YouTube channel, Nicola?
It is. So you can just go to YouTube and type in adventure travel in Guyana or active exploration travel in Guyana, and you'll be able to pull it up. Our YouTube page is actually Discover Guyana, as well as our Instagram and Facebook pages, which also have those videos up on it.
Perfect. I can also include a link to it in the webinar follow-up for you as well. If anybody has any questions, I know it's we're getting pretty close to that 40-minute mark, but we'll ask a couple more here. So if you want to type those through, now would be the time. We should have time for one or two. So Nicola, how long has fishing been a big part of Guyana tourism?
For quite some time now. I know Navin has been doing it for probably over 10 years, but it has been a big part of the tourism industry for a very long time here. And I know now with a lot of the tourism product going towards more of that experiential travel and just traveling how it used to be, which is by design how Guyana is built, it is getting a lot of attention recently for the type of tourism experiences we have here.
All right, I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Nicola, for joining us, and of course, Navin as well for taking the time, and of course, all of you for joining us from wherever you are. So thank you for tuning in for our webinar. As I mentioned before, it will be recorded, and the recording will be sent out to everybody next week. So if you do have any other questions, always feel free to reach out to me or Nicola, as she mentioned on the different websites. So thank you so much, and we will be in touch about the date for our next webinar.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Jenna.